Well, it was nice to get outside this morning and get a little ruck in with you and some of the other guys. The Rise and Ruck Phoenix, hosted by Casey Strunk, friend of the pod, kicked it back off, the fall season of our monthly ruck, and getting out there, getting the blood pumping early morning. Got a little raindrops, which was nice in Phoenix. A little dry
getting some good time in today. This is my kind of day, and perfect for the topic that you proposed and I loved in regard to leverage. Bamboo Banger for this week's episode is really talking about leverage. How this is how the greats operate. I think you and I were wrapping off, always trying to think about outsized returns. How can we get more for the effort that we're putting in? What's the maximum output we could get from it? And there's different ways to look at this. And again, it is typically repeated in other areas of life outside of just business or one specific area. So I love it, man. What made you throw this topic out?
Well, I was just thinking about all of the, just going through some reflection stuff that I normally do on a weekly or monthly basis. And then this rut coming up, like being able to leverage one single activity for networking, health and wellness, goals, keeping up with the morning routine, the discipline and consistency, like that one Rise and Ruck event that we do on a monthly basis, we leverage that for and then it just spreads the web so wide, and you leverage it in so many different areas. And so you say yes to that opportunity because of the maximizing the returns without very much effort, right? I mean, yeah, you're huffing and puffing from a physical standpoint at times going up the hill, but it just is a good topic, and thinking about the tools and resources and mindset that we have going into our daily lives and how do we optimize our time. It's not about cutting corners and finding the easiest path. Often you're taking the hardest path, but it's how do I leverage the positive thinking or the tools and resources that I have to get to my goals faster, because I know I have to put in the work and I know I have big goals and I know it's difficult. So what are the ways that I can challenge myself or continue to challenge myself without making it like I'm banging my head against the wall? And so I thought I want to just pick your brain on what you do, number one, but number two, share some of the things that I do from a business standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint to kind of keep things moving along, remaining on your path. And really, I mean, I know you do, we set some pretty large, lofty goals, and they're not easy. And when you're not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, it can put you in a dark place sometimes, but you have to leverage, you have to trust your knowledge and trust your skills and trust the things that you put in place to get to those levels that you want to get to. And so I think it just starts from all aspects of life, whether it's business, personal or professional, whatever, is leveraging those relationships around you. Just a few weeks ago, we were talking about how, you're kind of down a little bit, and you leverage a friendship, you leverage a relationship to kind of pick you back up, or you leverage you leverage a podcast or a book or a YouTube video, whatever it is, but you're leveraging people, whether you can shake their hand or not, you're leveraging those relationships directly or indirectly to get you through all sorts of situations. And so I think that's a big one. So just kind of let's start there with how we leverage relationships to get to where we want to be.
Yeah. Everyone's heard the saying, your network's your net worth type of deal. And it is true. I like to use relationships more so than network, probably just because network, it can get a stigma, which doesn't matter. It's just like everything. You put out what you get out what you put into it. But the more that you're cultivating true relationships, and this morning was a great example. I haven't met the majority of that group that we went and walked through, and my mind was first going too. And I've already made an introduction this morning after the walk because of just thinking, what's this person working on? What is something positive that could have a net win-win from him and someone else? And sure enough, a couple even friends of the pod, won't throw them out there yet because they haven't met or anything, but just that approach is like, if you can get like a win for ideally both of those people, but one of them, that's what it's all about. And again, there's no ask for me. It's just natural. It's a natural, organic thing. And that's where you talk about leverage of the outcomes that can be put together when you look at things from a community standpoint and us benefiting the collective not just taking, but that giving mindset, and honestly back to the foundation of we're all in this together type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we at the end there, you and I and one of the other guys were having a good conversation about sales and producers, right? And like how there's so many sales roles and positions, and there's not many great salespeople. And I think it's the word sales too. I think people think the hard sell and the quota carriers who go for the hard close and pressure people into buying, and it's not necessarily a great relationship or a great experience at all times. And it's also part of the reason why they're not producing. And so we were talking about how leveraging your ability to communicate on a relationship level and really diving in to figure out how to solve a problem and bring value and care about that other person and what they're going through is how you end up being a successful business development person, right? Or even an entrepreneur trying to grow revenue. It's people buying from people. They're not always, especially small business, right? We're not buying big brand stuff. It's small business. You're buying from the person that operates that organization.
Right. I thought it was an interesting conversation too, because you and I are obviously on the younger side of those groups, just by a little bit. And us being at the age where we were lucky enough to have some of those conversations, which is another high leverage item that I wanted to bring up in this conversation is mentorship, that we heard those conversations at a very early age of how you are here to generate net new business. Order taking is not going to get you there. And even if it does, it's going to be temporary. Your value add to the organization is what you can literally create that was not existing before, not living by a logo. And I love you use the term, have your net up. With the Bluebirds back to
that's Dick Warnica. Yeah, that's Warnica Master Tax days.
The Bluebirds are great, but like you were there to, and we were having the hunter farmer conversation.
Yeah.
Like you got to hunt sometimes, and then once you hunt, you can cultivate and farm some of that, but you've got to always be finding net new. And it was interesting, just random side conversation this morning that's being felt not only in our worlds. Individually, but as a market and as a whole. And there's a big transition going on in business that honestly just shows how much need there is for guidance. We talked about sales training and where that needs to go. And anyway, just refreshing there. Just that's the way to start the day, man. Just to get out like-minded, and get in nature. We're checking off the box in nature. It was just a really solid way to start the day.
It absolutely was. And a great way to go into the weekend. And I think one of the best things that I learned when, 22 years old, corporate America, net news, right? I'm hunting, we're trying to find new business. And I'm 22 years old talking to CEOs and presidents of organizations that I'm selling master tax to. And I'm like, who am I? Like, I'm just some kid straight out of college trying to sell to these guys who are in their, very successful business people. And as soon as it clicked, as soon as I recognize, like, dude, they're just people too. Like, who cares about the title? Who cares about the age, the gender, whatever? They're just people. Like, if you genuinely just care about them as a person and talk to them or with them as a person, that's how I think I was able to become so successful. And it really was all about building a relationship. And it was farming, because it was hunting in the beginning. Even with our, payroll business now, it was very much hunting in the beginning. But we now leverage and we're able to grow year over year in multiple digits year over year revenue growth based on current relationships. We don't cold call at all anymore. It's all based on the relationships we developed, and it just that's where the net starts, start holding the net and the referrals are coming in. It's because of all of the groundwork and the grind of building those relationships. And if it feels like a grind, then you're doing it wrong, right? It should just be effortless, because that's who you are and you're genuinely caring about the other person. So I did want to finish up the relationship aspect of leverage there. But you brought up a really good point about leveraging our time. And today was an hour and a half. We took an hour and a half out of our morning away from our normal morning routines. This is a once a month thing. We wouldn't normally drive somewhere early in the morning and go on a ruck on a hike somewhere that, it's just not part of our morning routine. It's 30 minutes from my house. And we leveraged that time because we saw what the potential maximum output could have been, either to drive personal and professional growth or just to be around like-minded individuals, as you said earlier. And I think that's where you start to shine, and that's where you start to find success, is the more opportunities you can put yourself in a circle of influence, of people that have been or are doing the same things that you're doing or have been where you want to go, and just being around them all the time and finding out what they do, picking their brains. and just leveraging their experience. I think that's a big needle mover. I mean, it was a great morning for sure.
Couldn't agree more. Another thing that it made me think about, Naval Ravikant's been on my mind quite a bit these days, and he's a tech, started off as being a builder, and he's just got so much wisdom. He's a Silicon Valley legend and borderline philosopher. He just has a number of sayings that I want to do a deep dive on the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, but he talks about how 3 of the highest leverage things are where you live, who you marry, and what you're deciding to work on. Now, what you decide to work on can get a little vague, but like this morning, just realizing how awesome it was to conveniently get into nature and around, but still being in a major US city where there are players making an impact in business. The location where you live, a lot of times it's where you were born. People just stay there. But some folks that might be a little more mobile or thinking about a potential move in their life, get intentional where you want to be, what geographies and industries are booming in your area, because it shapes everything you're going to do. That's your macro environment, et cetera. And then the other one being the partner that you choose, where it's not just because we're recording, man. You and I nailed this one.
Dude, that's huge. Yeah.
Some folks are a little more passive in that regard too, if you're not necessarily married, who you're dating, and how that shapes so much of what you do in regard to your goals aligning with them. Are they pushing you to show up and be better and be the person that you signed up to be? Do they support you? It's just such a high leverage. It has so much leverage when you're intentional and you get that partnership decision right. So those were top of mind to me this morning when we were thinking about the topic.
Yeah. Your life partner so as of the airing of this episode, it's Kim and I's 14-year wedding anniversary. It's been 14 years.
Woo. That's wild.
And you were a groomsman in that wedding. That's how long we go back, man. But yeah, 14 years. I still want to go back to my own wedding because it was so much fun, and it was a blur. I barely remember any of it. But you're absolutely right, especially with when you're a mover and a shaker and you're driven and you want to create and you want to do things at a very fast pace, and sometimes that spouse of yours helps you with decision making. And if you find the wrong partner that is just, I like to call. So Kimberly is definitely not a yes person, meaning she's not going to agree with everything that I do or say or think is great. And I love that because it protects me from spreading myself too thin or going down the wrong path or she's like, no, that's a terrible idea. I'm like, what? I think it's a great idea. And she's like, no, it's like, think about this, this, and this. I'm like, oh shit, you're right. So it brings clarity there too. So you leverage your spouse and your partner, even though she has zero interest in entrepreneurship. She does not want to get involved in any way. She doesn't want to start her own business. She loves her work and what she does. And that's perfectly fine for her. And we've had a lot of conversations about some of the future and what that looks like. And she's like my best advisor. Absolutely. Outside of other circles of entrepreneurs, she's in that, you're right. So that spouse, that partner that you choose is so important. And you can leverage that relationship, that love, not only from where you want to go in the future of the life that you want to build, but also for your personal goals. If you're making change, I made a lot of change in the last couple of years. And Kim and I were on the same page even before this. So we were running similar lifestyles. And she also made some changes in her life, but she could have easily been like, wow, you're kind of boring now. You don't want to go out on a Friday night anymore. But she didn't. And she was like, I support you. Let's go. And she jumped on board with some of that stuff too. So without that support, without that support, you can't have it. And so my parents are coming up on, I always get this wrong, but they're coming up on a big wedding anniversary too. They're still married. And I've asked my dad, we have monthly coffee meetings. And I've asked my dad, I was like, well, what's obviously there's no right answer. No one's going to have the answer. Every marriage and relationship is different. But what is been the success story, or what is the catalyst to your longevity of marriage with mom? And he just was, his number one thing is we just grew up together. You're not the same person that you were, I'm not the same person I was 14 years ago when I married Kim. My dad wasn't the same person now that he was when he married my mom. And he's like, you just have to continue to grow together, and you have to communicate, and if there's one partner that's not on board with that growth or that support or whatever, then it's a hard look in what you really want in your life. But I thought that was a great answer, is like, you grow together. You just continue to work together and grow together and look at it as, it's not just like once you're married, just set it and forget it. And that's that.
Absolutely. I love that. I think another one, as we were thinking through these, is when you talk about outsized return, is just deep work in general. Like the amount of time that is actually blocked, set task back to the cave days or whatnot. But the outsized return you get for being able to monotask and go deep on the top prioritized problems is something that is unbelievably high leveraged. And again, not sexy, not the glamorous thing. It is literally isolating all the variables, blank page, blank spreadsheet, whatever it might be, and just honing in 100% on that task. It never fails to be the highest leverage output. And you look back like, oh man, look at all this that's done and knocked out of the way just by blocking that time and doing that deep work back to the flow state. Of course, that flow is the biggest leverage for me.
100%.
The McKinsey studies making you 500% more productive, as clickbaity as that sounds. If you get anywhere close to that 500%, like doing that work is the definition of leverage.
Yeah, that's a huge hack to outsized results is time blocking. That leveraging your calendar and your time in the day for specific items and tasks, and nothing else distracts you during that period of time, whatever. It could be 10 minutes. 10 minutes meditation in the morning, nothing distracts me. It's all I'm doing. I'm time blocking that, and this is the time I do it, whatever. Like, I mean, even if you're a service-based business, let's say you're in the trades, you're a pool company, or you're a pool owner, you want to start a new business or whatever, and you're kind of running around frantically, you're out of alignment, saying yes to everything, you're networking, you're servicing pools, you're trying to figure out who you can partner with for repairs. If that's not your expertise, you're trying to figure out marketing and branding and banking, back office, to all of it, right? You time block that stuff and like, okay, I'm only servicing pools as I ramp up on these days or these hours of these days. And then these first hours late in the day, or these last hours late in the day is all about strategically planning my network and who I'm reaching out to and my branding. And then these hours are going to be strategically planned for XYZ. You can do that in any business. You just replicate time blocking of what it is that you need. What are the core basics that you need to run a business efficiently? And even if you're not a business owner and you're a W-2 employee, time blocking, you've got a million things coming at you all the time. Like in sales, you've got to hunt, you've got to farm, you've got to close, you've got to discover, you got to propose, send out the proposals, and then you got to follow through. And you have to time block that stuff, because if you're just frantically throwing all those things throughout the day, sometimes you get out of control. And so I think leveraging that time blocking piece and saying, okay, in the morning, I'm only doing this for the first 90 minutes from 8 to 9:30. And then from 9:30 to 2:30, I'll answer incoming emails, calls, whatever. And then from 2:30 to 5, I'm back to like deep work on project-based stuff that I have to do. And you just do that every single day. And that's you're leveraging that time in an efficient way.
Absolutely.
It's something that it's hard. It's harder said than done. I mean, that's something that I continue to teach with my team, because we get crazy, especially at year end with the payroll business. Like
you have to be reactive. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to be time blocking. And I've got team members that are doing multiple roles. Like they're wearing many hats. Like we're a small business, right? So it's not like everyone just has stay in your lane like it is at ADP or Paychex or whatever. Right. And so you're getting all these things like, okay, let's time block it. In the first hour of the morning, let's just do this. Don't answer emails. Just do this from 8 to 9. It's okay. Clients are going to be okay if you answer the email by 10, and so instead of as they come in reaction, be proactive with your time and leverage that. And I think you're just not as overwhelmed. You're far less stressed when you can manage your calendar in that way. So it's good leverage, good practice. It's not easy, but it's something definitely to work on.
Absolutely. What's your next one for high leverage?
Well, I wanted to talk about so if you want to put yourself out there, like content, right? So leveraging social media, leveraging this podcast, leveraging media, right? In any form. So whether it's a newsletter, obviously I write the Oppo Flow storybook every week. I leverage that personally for discipline and consistency and learning. But this podcast, like the tools that we use to get, this is not it's not a difficult thing to do. It took us a little bit to kind of figure out, but like we use Riverside it's not Zoom, and Riverside is built for podcasts. That way it can record locally on each of our machines, and we get clear, video and audio and all that stuff. We leverage Opus AI. So we leverage AI tools for social media clips, right? Once it's uploaded to YouTube, then we drop the YouTube link into Opus AI. And, these are plugs for some of these platforms. But at the end of the day, we're leveraging these tools that make it really easy for us to get content out there that gives us clips for social media. And then by leveraging past relationships or current relationships, we were able to get introduced to Michael, who does all the video and audio editing for our main podcast and uploads it to Spotify and YouTube. So I just thought that was a neat, using the word leverage, like how do we make this easy? Like sometimes when say, start a podcast, like that sounds like a massive time commitment. How much time do you think we're putting into this on a monthly basis? It's not a lot anymore because we've been able to leverage not only our experience and skills and, expertise by doing it for so long and the discipline and consistency, the habits there, but leveraging these tools that we have found to make things easier. Because when we first started, I was uploading to YouTube and Spotify. I was doing clips manually. Like I was downloading the video from Michael and then breaking it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. It was taking us hours. And then now it's just, we leverage some of these tools and it's like, what do we spend? Each episode is about 30 minutes. Now we basically just pop on and pop off. Michael does his thing, uploads, and then we have Opus AI to give us some clips, and then it's just up to us to post them. So it's just minimal amount of effort. So finding the tools when you want to start something and getting yourself out there from a branding perspective, personal brand, small business brand, whatever, leverage the tools and resources that you have. And most of this stuff's free. Like social media is free. You can just post this stuff on there and bring value to your clients or bring value to the market that you're trying to serve by being likable and on social media, being in front of people and being present. So that was a topic I wanted to hit on there.
That's a great example. And probably like, I would definitely agree that we're sitting on more. We haven't gone through even we're close to all the clips that we have.
Oh, no,
because this hasn't been a grow it, like crazy yet, but we're, continuing to build, and this is leverage we'll have for a long time as we continue to build out whatever this might become. One of the ones I wanted to bring up, and it kind of ties it back full circle to this morning, is honestly walking. People talk about getting the minimum 10,000 steps a day. That's a goal, but I've heard even closer to 7,500. If you can hit that mark, that's really, a high leverage. This probably didn't hit me till 3 years ago because I was like, I need to go to the gym or I need to go for a run or I need to do, set push-ups. It has totally hit me. It was probably working, during the pandemic when it first happened, when I just started walking around the neighborhood. But in regard to leverage, it's not just the steps. Yes, I have noticed it's wild how no matter what, if I'm, hitting that 8,000, 10,000 mark, that I just feel better, weight stable, along with obviously hitting the gym as well. But the mental reset of just walking and everything passing, it's like as your thoughts clear, as you're moving through time and space, you're like leaving a lot behind you, which is also a physical thing. You can't really isolate the variables, but then being able to catch up and review the podcast or listen to a new book. It's just so high leverage, just being able to go out and start walking and all of these positives that are there. It's so easy. One foot in front of the other, pick a podcast and go. And I just think that we myself just can get in my head and over complicate things. If things start getting a little cloudy, I'm a little like scattered or whatever, just go for a walk.
For a walk.
25 minutes. I have my exact route, put something in, and it's just so high leverage.
Dude, it's like, it sounds so simple to just get out of the house and go on a walk. And yet so many people aren't doing that.
No.
And I was one of those people too. And even, I'm going to the gym. You're not getting you're going to the gym. It's not the same. Just when you're just walking and you're not like max effort. There is something to that for sure. And I think there's been a game changer and the inspiration and the ideas that you get by listening to podcasts or audiobook, or even if you just walk in silence, getting lost in thoughts with no other distractions around you. is
it
huge.
is such a Western thing too, to not walk. Like you look at Europe, Asia, all other
everyone.
country, like everyone walks everywhere. Just walk, everybody. If you take one thing from this podcast, just go walk. Go for a walk.
Yeah. So Juno, my dog, Silver Lab, she loves to walk, and she also loves the pool. But we take her on more walks and throw her in the pool because she soaks the house when she comes right in. She's soaking wet. So in the mornings, I started this TikTok profile, and I've been doing these dog walk ruck talks. Right. So a dog walk ruck talk. So I throw the ruck vest on, and I take Juno out for a 2-mile walk. And in the morning, and especially in Phoenix, I started this, 6 months ago. I had to get up and go at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning because it's way too hot, right? Their paws, it's too, the asphalt and all, the sidewalk is too hot for them. So I go super early in the morning, and it just aligned with my morning routine. And anyway, I do this a handful of times, 3 or 4 times a week. Now it's getting nice out. But this morning, so I do these dog walk ruck talks. This morning, obviously I didn't because I went on the ruck with you guys. And I'm leaving the house, and Juno's like ready to go for her ruck. Like she's all excited, and she's like got her tail wagging. I'm like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Like I'm leaving my ruck partner. I was like, I'm gonna have to give her double duty over the weekend. But so if you've got a dog, like that's the best excuse ever. Like let the dog walk you. Like leverage the dog to go on a walk. The dog needs walk and exercise. So let them walk you and get out of the house and start just letting your thoughts go. And once you get in the habit, it's a game changer. It'll change your life. And I saw this image on Instagram, I think it said like most of your daily issues will be resolved if you wake up early. Like if you wake up at 6 a.m.
Oh, that's leverage. That's the definition of leverage. Yeah.
Right. Like just wake up early, and all the stuff that you're worried about, if you sleep in and you wake up at 8 o'clock and you're worried about stuff the night before, you're going to wake up worried, and then you got to get on with the day and it's chaos and you're still worried. But if you woke up at 6, and if you had to knock a couple things out to knock them out, knock them out. But if you wake up at 6 in the morning, or whatever your schedule makes sense for you, but you wake up an hour earlier than you need to, or an hour and a half earlier than you need to, and you let your thoughts just kind of let the day gradually become, and you just start being in the moment, all those worries really aren't worries. And whatever you thought was a big issue never really is a big issue.
That's a good one. I think you and I take that one for granted now, but absolutely. The earlier you start, that is so consistent amongst high performers, people making a dent. Their mornings are sacred because it all gets cleared out. You set the tone for your day. And that's how we started today. I think we've come full circle, man. Is that the pod? I think we have to put a bow on it the way it came around.
That's the pod, man. If you got a dog, let the dog walk you. Get outside, leverage your pup, leverage your relationships, leverage the resources and tools that we've outlined and some others, and share some with us. If you've got some cool tools or resources or different ways that you leverage to optimize your life, business, or personally, we'd love to hear it. We've got successflowpod@gmail.com. We have an email address. You can send us some things there, or you can comment, like, subscribe, follow, YouTube, Spotify, or reach out to us directly. Leverage us. We're here to help and be a resource.
We'll be back next week.